Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. I want to thank you for being with us. Bombshell tonight to Kansas suburbs. A little boy, a grandfather, a mother, gunned down mercilessly. Tonight, we dig deep and we find the hate-filled spewings of the man who pulled the trigger. Could he have been stopped? I say yes. Tonight, the killer exposed. First of all, I want to warn all of you, this is hate talk. Hate talk that erupted into murder. Murder times 3. Take a listen.
We've allowed tens of millions of foreign mud people to invade our country, steal our jobs and our women, and destroy our children's future. America is no longer ours. America belongs to the Jews who rule it and to the mud people who multiply in it.
What? You are hearing the voice of Frazier Glenn Cross, a.k.a. Frazier Glenn Miller, the man who unleashed killing 3, a grandfather, a mother, and a little boy, his hate spewing. George Howell, CNN correspondent. How long had that been going on? I mean, this was on a pretty popular radio show.
Well, Nancy, we know that he has been very active online. He's been interviewed by many people. If you look at his online presence, you see a lot of material that's been posted since 2005, since really he got out of prison. And now it's a situation where we know that he's been monitored by groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center. This is a case, though, that no one expected to happen. Again, when he came onto this campus here at the Jewish Community Center and gunned down 2 people in their cars, you mentioned those victims. William Corporon and his grandson, Reet Underwood, and then also, Nancy, at a retirement home, Teresa Lamano was killed when she was visiting her mother.
Joining me right now, the host of the David Pakman Show, who interviewed Frazier Glenn Miller. David, you had to be taken aback when you heard what this guy was saying. I mean, his hatred for Jews, he hates everybody, basically. He hates Jews, he hates African Americans, he hates gay people. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
It was, yeah, and I have quite a bit of experience interviewing extremists of all kinds, be they religious extremists, anti-gay, etc. And the thing that stood out about Miller was that most of those other ones that I mentioned, even though their rhetoric and their ideas are incredibly hateful and discriminatory, they're very nice to me personally, and they say they have no personal problem with me. In actuality, many of them want to save me. Miller specifically said that even though he had never met me, even though I had never done anything to him specifically, he hated me because I was Jewish.
You know, he's a powder keg waiting to blow. Take a listen to this.
Compared to our Jewish problem, all other problems are mere distractions.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Jews control the mass media in this country. They control the United States federal government, and they control the Federal Reserve Bank.
In what way? In what way do they control those things?
Well, as far as the mass media is concerned, they own outright a great deal of it, but they control it mainly through political correctness. Everybody's afraid to step over the line called political correctness, and the Jewish media has established what that line is.
And where is that line?
Well, you don't criticize the Jews for one thing. You know, the United States government has taken on the task, and it's the responsibility of the federal government now, to combat criticism of Jews in every country on earth.
Wow.
To include the monitoring of their books, their newspapers.
I've heard enough. I've heard enough. Joining me right now, William Martin, who actually represented this guy in a criminal case, I believe. William Martin, thank you for being with us. On what case did you represent him?
It was a case in the Eastern District of North Carolina, a federal case brought against him for contempt for violating a court order and also for violating some North Carolina statutes regarding paramilitary operations.
Okay, when you say paramilitary operations, what do you mean by that?
Well, according to the prosecution at the time, they had training camps and they were training to undergo military operations like a formal national military organization.
Wait, you mean he was training militarily to what? Overthrow our government?
to prevent organizations and people who he did not like from taking over the government.
Okay, such as who? Who does he think is going to take over the government?
Well, I think he's been pretty consistent throughout the years of African Americans and Jewish influences.
Okay, guys, this guy is a powder keg waiting to happen. Now, George Howell, isn't it true that he was charged in another case with a bunch of white supremacists and he turned and got a lighter sentence? Isn't that true?
That's what we've uncovered with our reporting. And Nancy, as I mentioned, after that, he took a low profile, it seems, but then started to slowly but surely put information online to get back to the point where people could understand where he was with his opinions. He became much more vocal as the years continued on.
What's so amazing to me, David Pakman, host of the David Pakman Show, who actually interviewed this guy a couple of years ago. You know what's so amazing, David Pakman, is you think people like this don't exist anymore. And tonight is a wake-up call. They do. David, I prosecuted a lot of hate crimes when I was a felony prosecutor. And it was crimes on African Americans, crimes on homosexuals. I mean, it really didn't matter. It was hate. Hate-motivated murders and crimes. You should know better than anybody because you interviewed this guy. It's alive and well in our country.
Yeah, and I get asked often, in fact, the last 24 hours, why I interview people like this. And it's not to glorify their ideas. It's not to give them a platform, as some might argue I'm doing. It's really just to show that in kind of a broad context, a lot of guests, hundreds and hundreds of guests that I have, that these ideas exist and that the line between words only and real-world violence is a blurry line, and it can be stepped over pretty quickly. And sometimes behind the microphone, you don't really know when that's going to happen.
Everyone, tonight is proof that hate and hate crimes are real. They are real. They just happen. You know, the other day, my children were in a dance contest at school, and everybody was there. Can you imagine somebody like this guy, Frazier Glenn showing up and gunning down teachers and parents and children alike? Hate doesn't discriminate. Listen to this.
I hate all Jews.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. For me to say out of the one corner of my mouth that I didn't hate all Jews, and then out of the other corner of my mouth say that Jews caused the deliberate murders of over 300 million of my people during the 20th century alone.
Right. Okay.
Of course I hate you.
But what if
you've earned my hate?
What have I done personally?
I hate all Jews.
Okay, David Pakman, host of the David Pakman Show, you may have been attacked for interviewing this guy. I don't enjoy listening to him, but I'm glad that I know, and I'm glad that I can alert people that hate is alive and well in this country and that our freedom of speech borders on hate talk. And he gets away with this kind of thing because he's protected by the Constitution. Now we see that hate talk erupt into the murders of 3 innocent people. I wouldn't be surprised if your transcript, David Pakman, doesn't become State's Exhibit #1.